Nobody saw this coming. Caitlin Clark was supposed to be gone. Packed up, traded, done with Indiana forever. That's what the internet screamed for 48 straight hours after one 30-second clip hit social media. Skip Bayless told millions of people she was leaving. Fans flooded comment sections demanding heads roll. And through all of it, one detail kept getting buried. None of it was true. Not one word. What's actually happening inside the Indiana Fever right now is the total opposite of the story the internet tried to sell you. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why Caitlin Clark isn't running from Indiana. She's running towards something no player in Wnba history has ever touched. Stick around because this goes way deeper than a viral clip. And if you're new here, subscribe, hit the bell, and drop your prediction in the comments before we get into it. It was May 30th, 2026. The Fever were on the road in Portland, and the game was ugly from the opening tip. Portland controlled the pace. Indiana's defense looked a step slow. Nothing was clicking. By the final buzzer, the Fever had been blown out, 100-84, dropping them to 4-4 in a season that was supposed to be their breakout year. But nobody was talking about the score. Nobody cared about turnovers or missed rotations. All anyone cared about was 30 seconds of footage from a second half timeout. Cameras caught head coach Stephanie White mid-conversation, animated, leaning in, finger pointed, clearly making a point. Sitting right in front of her, Caitlin Clark. Clark threw her hands up. She shook her head. Moments later, White subbed rookie Raven Johnson in for her. That was it. That was the entire clip. No audio. No context. No idea what was actually said. And within hours, it had been viewed millions of times. Then the internet did what the internet always does. It took a silent 30-second clip and turned it into the biggest controversy in the league. Analysts who hadn't watched a single Fever possession all season were suddenly experts on locker room dynamics. Then Skip Bayless posted that Stephanie White had been fired. Completely false. She was still the head coach. She was at practice the next morning running drills like nothing happened. But by the time the truth caught up, thumbnails were already out showing Clark in a Liberty jersey. Articles were already written, and the fake story had a life of its own. Here's what almost nobody pointed out while all of this was happening. This was never a basketball story. It was a story about how fast a lie travels when the most talked about athlete in women's sports is the subject. Every look on Clark's face, every hand gesture, every sideline exchange gets run through a microscope no other player in the league has ever had to deal with. A coach challenging a player mid-game happens in every single basketball game ever played. High school gyms, college arenas, NBA benches, all of it. Two competitive people who hate losing, going at it after a bad performance. That's just basketball. But when it's Caitlin Clark, it becomes a 5-alarm fire. 2 days later, Clark stood in front of reporters at the practice facility, and she didn't dodge a single question. She looked straight into the cameras and said, "Two people who both hate losing are going to clash sometimes. That's competitiveness." And she made it clear plenty of people commenting online had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. Then she got personal. She brought up the night she went down with an injury against Connecticut the year before, and how she ended up in Stephanie White's arms in that moment. She said that's someone she'll ride for the rest of her life, that people scrolling on their phones don't see the moments that actually matter, the ones where someone truly has your back. Then she said 6 words that ended the entire narrative on the spot. "I ride for Steph, period." White backed it up just as directly. She said what happened in that timeout was coaching, plain and simple, and that if it were a men's league, nobody would even blink. She said her relationship with Clark is great, that she loves her, that she rides with her. And that's really the conversation nobody wanted to have. When a men's coach gets in a player's face during a timeout, it's called intensity. It's called passion. It becomes a legendary highlight. Popovich screaming at Duncan is a classic clip. Phil Jackson pushing Kobe built a dynasty. But White challenging Clark the exact same way suddenly means dysfunction, suddenly means she should be fired. The double standard was obvious, and both of them said so without flinching. Weeks later, Clark sat down with ESPN and went even further, saying she's easy to coach, but also difficult in the sense that no one gets defended the way she does. So White has to get creative with the game plan, and there's nobody she'd rather have doing that. She said their competitive fire matches perfectly, that they'll go at each other hard but love each other at the end of the day, and that's exactly what makes it fun. That's not a player tolerating her coach for the cameras. That's real respect. It showed up again later in the season too. After Fever fans actually booed Stephanie White inside their own arena, Clark was furious, not at the refs, not at the other team, at her own crowd. She said she'd talked to White earlier that day, reminded everyone that coaches are human too and have feelings, and that there was no version of that night where the team was losing for her. The Fever went out and blew the opposing team off the floor. That tells you everything about what's actually happening in that locker room. Now here's the real question. How did Clark even get to this point? Because less than a year ago, nobody knew if she'd be able to play basketball at a high level again. Clark walked into her sophomore season carrying a level of momentum almost no athlete ever gets to carry. Rookie of the Year. First team All-WNBA as a rookie. League leader in assists. AP Female Athlete of the Year. She'd already dragged the Fever into the playoffs for the first time in nearly a decade. Everything pointed to 2025 being the leap year. Then her body just betrayed her. Quad tightness in the preseason. She played through it anyway. For games into the regular season, a quad strain, out 3 weeks. Came back, played 5 games, went down again with a groin strain, out over 2 weeks. Came back a third time in July, played 3 more games, and then in the final minute of a win over Connecticut, she tore something in the other groin. That was the end of her season. 13 games. 13 out of 44. She spent the rest of the year in street clothes, cheering from the bench, watching her teammates claw all the way to a Game 5 in the semifinals against Las Vegas without her, and she couldn't do a single thing about it. Anyone who's ever been hurt while their team is fighting knows exactly what that does to you mentally. Clark said it herself during that stretch. She said people think she's a robot, that she's not, that she has real emotions, and it can get to her more than she ever shows. When the season finally ended, she posted a message online that basically said 2025 tried her, and 2026 was going to be different. That was someone who'd been through the fire and wasn't scared of it anymore. The front office felt the exact same way. They brought in reinforcements around her and Aaliyah Boston, signed Monique Billings, Maisha Hines-Allen, Shattarai Walker-Kimbrough, drafted Raven Johnson in the first round, and built real depth for the first time in years. But the only question that mattered was whether Clark would actually be healthy. The answer showed up at the FIBA World Cup qualifiers in San Juan, her first real basketball in 8 months. The Fever's GM flew down personally to watch, and within minutes Clark had 2 assists and drained a logo 3 that had the crowd on its feet instantly. She was back. She was moving free. And she looked hungrier than anyone remembered. Nobody could have predicted just how hungry, though. This season hasn't been a comeback. A comeback implies returning to where you were. Clark didn't return to where she was. She went somewhere no player in league history has ever been. Through 37 games, she's averaging over 21 points and more than 8 assists a night, shooting over 44% from the field and better than 35% from 3. Those numbers alone put her at the top of the league, but the numbers don't even tell the real story. July 18th in Indianapolis tells the real story. Seattle came into Gainbridge Fieldhouse expecting a competitive game. What they got was history. Clark dropped 45 points and dished 10 assists, becoming the first player in the entire history of the WNBA to record a 40-point, 10-assist game. Not Taurasi, not Bird, not Aya Wilson. Nobody, ever, in the whole existence of the league. After the buzzer, White stood in front of the team, barely able to get words out, just repeating disbelief while listing off every record that had just been broken. Most points in franchise history, first 40 and 10 game ever, and the most combined points by 2 Fever players in a single game between Clark and Kelsey Mitchell. The room absolutely erupted. That performance wasn't a one-off either. She's been that good all season long. She's the engine that makes the entire offense function. Push in transition and the whole defense has to collapse. Pull up from the logo and the building holds its breath. Thread a pass through 2 defenders to Boston rolling to the rim, and it looks like a video game on easy mode. The Fever sit at 24-13, clinched a playoff spot for the 3rd straight season, ripped off 10 wins in 12 games during one stretch in July. And they're not just good anymore. They're a legitimate title contender. The MVP conversation around Clark right now is completely real, and what's happening off the court might end up being just as big. On June 17, 2026, after 2 years of build-up, Nike finally unveiled the Caitlin 1, her first signature shoe, and it delivered on every bit of hype. She'd been dropping hints for months, teasing the release date through outfit choices, telling the Kelsey brothers on their podcast that the tech going into this shoe was something Nike had genuinely never built into a basketball shoe before. The shoe uses a brand new Nike construction called OptiCast, built with cast polyurethane nodes to cut drag and improve movement, with a design pulled straight from the ripple of a three-point arc, fitting for someone who's made the deep ball her signature. It runs on Cushlan foam paired with a low-profile Air Zoom turbo unit for faster response. The personal touches are everywhere, double swooshes nodding to her initials, her number and initials molded into the upper, and messaging stitched underfoot that basically dares you to shoot from anywhere. At $140 for the adult version, it's the most expensive debut signature shoe any WNBA player has ever released, ahead of Aya Wilson's, ahead of Sabrina Ionescu's, ahead of Angel Reese's Reebok line. Nike is betting that Clark's audience reaches way past basketball, and every sign so far says they're right. The shoe officially drops October 1st, starting with the racer blue colorway, but she's already worn multiple versions on court this year, including an all-star colorway she teased online and then physically hid 5 pairs of around Chicago for fans to track down during All-Star Weekend. This shoe sits inside her 8-year, $28 million Nike deal, the largest endorsement in the history of women's basketball. And it's not really about sneakers anymore. It's about an entire brand being built with this shoe as the foundation. But the biggest business move of Clark's career isn't the shoe deal. It's what happened on April 28, 2026, when the Fever exercised the 4th-year option on her rookie contract, locking her in through 2027. Nobody was surprised by that part. It was basically a formality. But the paperwork opened the door to something much bigger. Clark was drafted first overall in 2024 on a 4-year rookie deal worth a total of roughly $338,000. Read that again. The most transformational player in league history was making under $85,000 a year in her rookie season. The new collective bargaining agreement changed all of that, pushing average salaries up nearly 400% league-wide. Her 2026 salary jumped to just under $529,000, with her 2027 option worth close to $598,000. Still nowhere near her actual value, and everyone in the sport knows it, since her endorsement income alone clears $16 million a year, making her league salary basically a rounding error. Here's why the contract actually matters though. Because Clark made first-team All-WNBA as a rookie, she qualifies for the league's new exceptional performance provision, which lets her renegotiate and sign a 3-year extension a full year earlier than normal. Her teammate Aaliyah Boston already used that same provision to sign a $6.3 million extension, the biggest total contract value in league history. Clark is eligible to do the exact same thing after this season, and the front office isn't going to wait around to get it done. She said publicly, more than once, that she wants to spend her entire career in Indiana. She's not going anywhere. She doesn't want to go anywhere. That hasn't stopped the rumor mill, though. Back in May, during a lighthearted moment with Boston, Clark jokingly reminded her that she's not locked into a long-term deal yet, just 2 friends messing around. Fans somehow turned that into proof she was shopping for an exit. That's the world she lives in now, where even a joke gets treated like a leaked classified document. So why do the trade rumors and exit narratives keep coming back around, over and over, every few weeks? That question honestly says more about the state of sports media than it says about Caitlin Clark. These videos aren't about basketball. They're about clicks. They're about feeding an algorithm that rewards outrage and speculation over actual reporting. You've probably seen the exact type of video that inspired this one, claiming she's secretly ready to quit the Fever, claiming New York made a covert offer, claiming the coaching staff faked injury reports to control her minutes, claiming the commissioner is furious and the front office is falling apart. None of it is real. Not one part. She's under contract through 2027. There's no trade offer from New York. There never was. The coaching staff didn't fabricate anything. Her 2025 injuries were real soft tissue injuries, fully documented, and she's been completely healthy all season in 2026. The commissioner hasn't said anything close to what these videos claim, and the front office just built a 24-win playoff team, which is the opposite of falling apart. But the video doesn't need to be true to work. It just needs to be dramatic enough to hold your attention for 15 minutes. And that's the whole business model. There's an entire content machine built around Caitlin Clark clickbait right now, pumping out videos daily with thumbnails showing her in some other team's jersey, headlines screaming betrayal, using her name purely as engagement bait for an audience that might not follow the league closely enough to know the difference between speculation and fact. And she knows it's happening. She's called it out directly, saying plenty of people in the media think they know things and are just flat out wrong, that people glued to their phones all day never actually see what's happening behind the scenes. That gap says everything about the difference between the real Caitlin Clark and the version that lives in YouTube thumbnails. The real one shows up to practice every single day, grinding on her game, defending her coach publicly, backing her teammates, and playing some of the best basketball anyone has ever watched. The fake one is apparently always one bad game away from quitting, always miserable, always surrounded by chaos that doesn't exist. One version is built on facts. The other is built on an algorithm. And unfortunately, the algorithm is louder. This matters beyond just her too. When millions of people are constantly fed a narrative that the league is nothing but dysfunction and players trying to escape, it warps how casual fans see the entire WNBA, right as the league is genuinely booming. 2 new expansion cities. Record viewership. Players finally earning something closer to what they're worth. Sold-out arenas. The deepest talent pool the league has ever had. That's the real story, but it doesn't generate the same numbers as a fake trade rumor, so it gets buried under the noise every time. And there's a human cost to all of this that's easy to forget. Clark has talked openly about how the constant scrutiny wears on her, about how people assume she doesn't feel any of it when she absolutely does. White has been through the same thing, booed in her own building, falsely reported as fired, second-guessed constantly by people who have never coached a single game in their lives. These are real people dealing with completely manufactured chaos on a weekly basis. And through every bit of it, Clark has responded not with bitterness, but with total transparency and loyalty. That tells you something about who she is that has nothing to do with stats. So let's bring it all the way back around. Where does Caitlin Clark actually stand right now? Not the internet's version, the real one. She's in the middle of the best stretch of her career, averaging over 21 points and 8 assists a night while shooting better than she ever has. She set an all-time league record with a 45-point, 10-assist night that will be replayed for decades. Her team is 24-13, heading to the playoffs for a 3rd straight year, playing their best basketball at exactly the right time. Off the court, she's about to headline the biggest signature shoe launch women's basketball has ever seen, with a $28 million Nike deal already producing a full apparel line and a logo that's becoming iconic in its own right. Contractually, she's locked in through 2027, with a provision on the table that could extend her in Indiana for years beyond that. Her relationship with Stephanie White isn't broken. It's one of the strongest player-coach bonds in the entire league, built on the exact same competitive fire that made both of them successful in the first place. And here's the part that makes all of this even wilder. She's only 24. She's still in her 3rd professional season. She's already rewritten records that stood for decades, already reshaped the financial landscape of an entire league, already inspired a generation of kids who want to play exactly like her, and by every indication, she's just getting started. 2025 tried to break her. It took almost everything from her physically and mentally. She used every bit of that pain as fuel instead. Now she's playing the best basketball of her life at the exact moment the spotlight on women's sports has never burned brighter. So next time you see a thumbnail with her face pasted onto a Liberty jersey, or a headline screaming that she's abandoning Indiana, remember what the actual evidence says. Remember the record-breaking numbers. Remember the contract. Remember the words she said directly into the cameras, defending her coach, backing her teammates, and committing to the franchise that drafted her 1st overall. This was never a story about drama. It's a story about dominance. And the most dominant player the WNBA has ever seen is just getting started. What do you think her ceiling actually looks like from here? Are the Fever real title contenders this year, or do they still need one more piece? Drop it in the comments. We read every single one. Like the video if you got something out of it. Subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you in the next one.